Okay, I would like to know if we have any art buffs in the room. Does anybody know what this image on the screen, and it's on your workbook, can anybody name it?
Jacob wrestling with the angel.
Jacob wrestles with the angel. Yeah. Anybody know the artist? Extra credit if you know the artist. No? Okay, that's okay. That's all right. That's all right. This is by Gustave Doré. And back in the 1800s, he did a series of engravings of the whole Bible. And they made a nice bound illustrated Bible. And this is Jacob wrestling with the angel. Now, that story appears in Genesis chapter 32. And we're not going to look at it. But the gist of it is Jacob has this encounter. He's getting ready to go back and meet his brother Esau, who basically the last time they talked, Esau wanted to kill him. And so he hasn't seen him for years and years and years and years. And he's going back to meet him. And the night before he's about to go meet him, he even sends his family ahead. In case Esau has a bad temper, he'll take it out on the family first. Jacob, not a great guy in Scripture at this point. And he goes to sleep one night, and it says that a man came, approached him, and he wrestled with this man all night. And by morning, they were still going at it. And finally the man said, "Let me go." And Jacob said, "I'm not going to let you go until you bless me." The man said, "What's your name?" He said, "Jacob." He said, "Your name is no longer Jacob, it's Israel." Jacob, the name Jacob meant one who comes from behind and takes what's not his. It means literally heel grabber or supplanter. Somebody who, well, Israel means Yisrael. He wrestles with God. Because, and Jacob, when he got that new name and he realized, he said, "I got to name this place Pnei El, face of God, because I have seen the face of God." And so what we find out in this story is that the man or angel that Jacob's wrestling with is really God himself. God actually comes and visits Jacob in this way. And so Jacob, he's changed forevermore. He gets a new name. He walks away with a limp because his hip gets out of socket. And it's an interesting story. Now the question is, what does that have to do with interpreting the Bible? Why in the world would this illustration be an illustration on the front cover of a course on reading and studying the Bible? Anybody have any ideas?
We all wrestle with God.
Exactly. When we read the Bible, we're wrestling with God. I tell every time I teach this course, I say, if you're reading the Bible and you don't struggle with what you read, then you're not really reading the Bible. Because no matter how devout and pious and faithful and knowledgeable you are, there's stuff in the Bible that will make you struggle. We read stuff we don't like, or we read stuff that we really like and don't want to read anything else. We read stories we just don't understand. We have names of people that make no sense to us. Some way or another, we wrestle with God through His Word. And that's how God designed it. And that's one of the beauties of studying Scripture, is that it's a lifelong task that never ends, because you're engaging with God. So if you're not struggling, if you're not wrestling, then you may not be doing it right. If you are struggling and you are wrestling and you read the Bible and you scratch your head and say, "I just don't understand this." Sometimes I read it and it's great. Sometimes it's just weird. What do I do with this? Thumbs up. That's okay. That's a good thing. So right off the bat, we just want to dispel any of that, because there's always people that take this course that are afraid to ask questions or to admit that they don't know as much as they think they should know about the Bible. And I'll just relieve you, nobody knows as much as they think they should know about the Bible. It's a lifelong quest. I want to read a quote. This is from a book, and you'll see there's a lot of books up here. I reference books not so that you go out and read it right now, but so that you make a note of something that you hear or something that I mention is worth jotting down, that you write it down in your notebook. There's a space on the side of each page where you can write all the notes you want. And so that later you may come across somebody that has a question about something, or you may have a question about something and go, "Wait a minute, I remember him mentioning a book about this. Let me go look back at my notes." Well, in this book, it was by a pastor from Grand Rapids named Rob Bell, and he wrote this book called Velvet Elvis, and it's re-imaging the Christian faith. And this was a bestseller, and it was kind of controversial, and like all Christian authors, people don't agree with everything that he said, and he's been critiqued and back and forth. And one passage in particular, though, I think he just hit it dead on when he was talking about the Bible. In this section on page 51 through 53, I'm going to read this quote and just listen to what he's saying, because then I want someone to sum up and give us a Cliff Notes version of this. This is what Rob Bell says. He says the Bible is a communal book. It came from people writing in communities, and it was often written to communities. Remember, the printing press wasn't invented until the 1400s. Prior to that, very few, if any, people had their own copies of the Bible. In Jesus' day, an entire village could probably afford only one copy of the Scriptures, if that. Reading the Bible alone was unheard of, if people could even read. For most of church history, people heard the Bible read aloud in a room full of people. You heard it, discussed it, studied it, argued about it, and made decisions about it as a group, a community. Most of the yous in the Bible are plural. Groups of people receiving these words. So if one person went off the deep end with an interpretation or an opinion, the others were right there to keep that person in check. In a synagogue, most of the people knew the text by heart. When someone got up to teach or share insight, chances are everybody knew the text that person was talking on and had already formed their own opinions about it. You saw yourself and those around you as taking part in a huge discussion that has gone on for thousands of years. Contrast this communal way of reading and discussing and learning with our Western highly individualized culture. In many Christian settings, people are even encouraged to read the Bible alone, which is a new idea in church history. A great idea and a life-changing discipline, but a new idea. And think of pastors. Many pastors study alone all week, stand alone in front of the church and talk about the Bible, and then receive mail and phone calls from individuals who agree or don't agree with what they say. This works for a lot of communities, but it isn't the only way. Community, community, community. Together with others, wrestling and searching and engaging the Bible as a group of people hungry to know God in order to follow God. That's from Velvet Elvis by Rob Bell. What point was he making in that? What was his main point? That studying the Bible is a shared experience? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Where do you get that in let's say here, at America's, where do you get that shared community experience of studying the Bible?
Sunday school class.
Sunday school classes, ideally. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Small group Bible studies. Could just be a couple of you that meet for lunch once or twice a week and discuss the Bible. There's no one way to read and study the Bible that fits everyone, as long as we are reading and studying it together with other people. And I love his emphasis on community, because 100% of every cult that's ever started has been started by someone who read the Bible alone, formed their own interpretation without looking at the rest of the entire history of Christian thought, and then convinced other people that they were right. And voila, you have a cult. And so we don't want to be starting cults here, hopefully. As Christians in general, cult starting is a bad thing. So we want to study the Bible, we want to study it together. And that's what we're going to do over the next couple of sessions.